Hey guys, so this is Mira from Coriander Lions. So I am doing some in-person readings this week, or on Sunday this past weekend, and then this next weekend I'm also doing I'm at events. So I'm like I'm feeling kind of like I want to do something with tarot, but I am like I don't want to do readings because I just did a bunch on Sunday and I'm going to be doing a bunch on this coming Saturday and this coming Sunday. And I'm like, I don't want to do a bunch of readings because the last time I did that, I fizzled myself out really badly because I got back and I didn't shut my Etsy store down while I was gone. And I just burnt myself out pretty bad by doing like readings all weekend. And then I had multiple other readings on Etsy and I'm like, we're not doing that again. So instead, I've been really getting into my Oracle deck, and I wanted to sit down and kind of go back over it and kind of bring you guys along for that. Side note, this deck very much includes chakras. So we're actually going to go ahead and get right into the book first. This book is small, but it is packed full of a lot of interesting and meaty bits. So the first copyright is 2021. Did I get it that late? I think late. I believe I got this late 21. So not long after it was printed. So the journey is pretty so she has in here, firstly, it's the journey. And this is a US Games publication. So, so we have the journey of the deck, and then we have the introduction, which is still pretty lengthy. I'm probably going to read at least a little bit, and then we'll get into the use of color because that's also important. So who actually wrote this? Oh my gosh, her name is not in here, or his or her name. Melissa Salvaggio. And then artwork is by Jess O'Connor. And I apologize for the absolute insanity of this video. This was not planned. It was not rehearsed, nothing. So this is literally what you get when I sit down and decide I'm going to do a video. So this was a passion project from 2015 for Melissa. To create a deck with minimal imagery, focusing on only one or two central colors per piece. And very much on point for that, in my opinion. So determination is just one of those. So all of them have just a single keyword, and everything else, oops, sorry, I'm hitting the table. Everything else is found in the guidebook. You don't technically need the guidebook, but it has, like I said, a lot of meaty bits that we're going to get into. The idea was that the simple illustrations would serve as a starting point for the user to discover what the image meant to them without being bogged down by excessive details. When I read that, I really, really appreciated this deck all the more. And for some cards, I still do very much go back to the guidebook, which is why I wanted to kind of, really go deeper into this deck because, like I said, there's a lot in here. I think this deck is one of those decks that kind of gets overlooked. Probably, it's not everybody's taste, but a lot of like the typical Oracle decks that everybody's been kind of like really raving about, not really my thing either. So I can understand where like this deck is one of my absolute favorites, is one I've been using like strictly. This is my strict, I have two Oracle decks. I have this one and the Woodland Wardens. This is the one that I've been using in every reading. This is the one I read strictly with on Sunday. I pair it with my Marseille deck, and that is how I read. We will get into that, but firstly, we're going to finish the introduction. What initially began as a list of 44 keywords grew to 44 roughly sketched drawings with vague color palette and some scrawled notes about the relationship between the image and keyword. Mid-2016, the universe conspired to put me in the path of Jess, who I commissioned to become the artist for the deck. Jess completed the art. I busied myself on the guidebook, and after countless revisions of the text, several edits of the art, and producing many variants of the end product, it is finished. The process of creating this deck has been somewhat of a magnum opus for me. The conception of the idea, rough sketching of the cards, commissioning a talented local artist, completion of the artwork was a long and drawn-out process. My main concern was not wanting the text to come across as prescriptive or even suggestive. I wanted to allow the seeker to draw a card and find their own meanings without being tied down or clouded by my suggestion. Another really on point addition, I think, because again, I use this deck and I've used this guidebook. I mean, as you can tell, this guidebook has been very, very well loved. So those I found very important points when I read through this introduction and started using the guidebook when I read. Yet at the same time, I didn't want people to feel disconnect with the chosen image and keyword. Each illustration evokes a strong feeling, and this is what I most wanted to convey. As much as I love to read guidebooks from different decks to discover the creator's intention behind each of the images, I also love to develop my own relationship with the cards, and I know I'm not alone in this. To help you connect with your own personal way with the deck, I strongly encourage you to develop your own relationship with each card and take the opportunity to decide on your own meaning for each one, allowing for a deeper intuitive connection. Take a few notes and consider them to be somewhat of a self-written guidebook with meanings that align most closely with what the imagery invokes within you. So each page offers the following in each image. So you first have a keyword. Bare, stripped back, essential feeling of the card. Quote, a poignant message that sums up the energy of the card. The meaning, expanded text describing possible interpretations of the card. My light, keywords that encompass the positive aspects of the card. Shadow, keywords that touch on the negative aspects of the card and will help bring attention to the areas that may currently be blocked or need further examination. And my sacred words, affirmation, mantra, or chant that evokes the meaning of the card through one spoken sentence. Let me just go ahead and open this up. My sacred words. So this is actually for grounded. Okay. So my sacred words, since we're on that, and it's something that, so for grounded, that is the key word. My sacred words. I keep one foot firmly planted as I allow my imagination to create my future. And then finally is the chakra association. The deck was originally created based loosely on the 9-point chakra system, with keywords and colors chosen specifically on this basis. Predominant card colors are used to resonate with the particular chakra identified. So again, for grounded, it's a dragon. It is obviously the base chakra. And then finally, we have the raison d'etre. From the French, meaning purpose or reason for being. This entry provides a brief explanation for the choice of illustration for each card to provide us with understanding the card's role in the deck. So use of color. Based on the 9-point chakra system, one predominant color specific to the keyword and its chakra association. Like I said, I didn't realize that when I bought it, but it does not upset me, and it actually is something that I've kind of wanted to study to be able to add into my readings. The purpose is to activate the energy of each card within the seeker, bringing focus to areas of strength and weakness. 7 personal chakras, so it's base, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. So those are the normal body chakras. Then you have something called, and it is in this book, and I have no doubt that if you were to look up these other 2 chakras, you'd probably be able to find them pretty easily. I haven't gone past the main 7. I haven't touched on these other 2, which are Earth Star and Soul Star. And then each of the chakras colors is listed here. So Earth Star is this like really dark teal color. Base is red, sacral is orange, solar plexus is yellow, heart is green and pink. Throat is this pretty blue, third chakra is dark purple, and crown is So my guess is third eye is indigo, crown is violet, and then soul star is this super golden color. And then you have spreads. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3 spreads. Okay. And then we get into the cards themselves. Okay, so I have them all organized. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the entire book. So I'm going to probably restart this video because that was just a colossal nightmare. And I'm going to just jump right in. I'm going to restart here at the cards. So I'm going to tell you what the chakra association is, and then I'm going to read the raison d'etre. And I'm going to do that for each of the cards. It just kind of, if nothing else, gives anybody else looking at this a really solid idea of the deck, because you don't just want, and I've been using this deck since I got it. Like it's been an off and on kind of journey of like, okay, how do I want to use this deck? And now I've kind of hit the point where I know how I want to use it. So I have the extra cards here that don't fall into the main categories. I will get to these. They are just not super, super important right now. I'm going to set it here and we're going to start. So we firstly have abundance. So this is the sacral chakra. The goldfish is often seen as a symbol of abundance with its iridescent golden hues. It spends much time gliding gracefully through the water without worrying about whether the next goldfish it encounters shines more brightly. The goldfish serves as a reminder to be happy with your own lot in life without comparing yourself to those around you. So again, if you know nothing else about this card other than it being the sacral chakra and that little bit of information, that is plenty for me to be able to really go off of. I'm just hoping that if somebody wants to buy this particular deck or wants to have a better understanding, a little bit about, anything, this is one of my main decks for a reason. And it also kind of gives me an excuse to do a little bit of study because I haven't studied this deck enough for me. So we have acceptance. So this is the heart chakra. So it is green and pink according to this book. So you have green and pink in the coloration, which again, lots of orange in this one. Yes, there's blue, but it's more the primary colors, one or two colors. Like those are the important ones. And acceptance is obviously a heart chakra. That makes very much sense. So this is a cherry blossom. It serves as a reminder of the changing seasons and to appreciate the beauty of each cycle as time continues to turn. Nothing remains the same forever. So acceptance can mean a lot of things, obviously. But it still comes down to acceptance of things change with time. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is acceptance does happen over time, but it also is just enjoy the moment. Accept the moment as it comes. That's kind of what I would really take from this, is accept things as they are, and also accept that things are going to change, because every second we are changing, every day we're changing. And it really, if you take nothing else from that, it's, heart chakra, acceptance, like that. There is so many things that you can really unlock with that. And if somebody wanted to take even just a couple of these cards and use them for shadow work, dang, yes. I think any deck, depending on the way you read, is going to be a good deck for you if it fits in your reading style. For me, this fits in my reading style because my goal is to give advice. And that's why I love this deck. So next we have Advocate. And I have to say, this is one of those cards that just, that I can look at and be like, I know what that means. and I can completely space. Like I had to ask somebody to give me the definition of advocate the other day, and I felt like such an idiot because I'm in the middle of a reading and this card comes up and I'm like, shit, I don't know what the definition of advocate is. And I'm just like, and after somebody was kind enough to give me the definition, I was fine. I was fine. I felt so bad for the person I was reading when this card came up. But anyway, I digress. So again, throat chakra. Through just though just a tiny flower, the forget-me-not. That seems ridiculously fitting. Like forget-me-not. Okay. Of small is symbolic. So the forget-me-not is symbolic of small things that hold great meaning. It asks you to speak up on matters close to your own heart, regardless of how small you feel they are. So important things should not be ignored. It kind of gives me this feeling of like self-care. Like self-care is important to a degree. Like if you're just indulging to indulge instead of doing it for the right reasons because you're an overworked mom and you deserve that, like, 20 minutes in the bath, or you're going out on a date and you have like it's just like, I'm going to take that extra half an hour and really do my hair. It's not going out to like the spa and dropping money that you don't have, but it's also just doing things for yourself, doing those small things. Like it says, small things that hold great meaning. That again, there's a lot of depth even to just reading that tiny little section. You don't need the my light, the sacred words, the shadow, the whole thing. Like you don't need all of this. It's nice. I like that there's an option there to have like all of this, but that raison d'etre, that little piece there at the bottom, that really hits home for me. So I'm going to keep going. So next is balance. One of my favorite cards, because this reminds me of, I got this originally to pair with my Way Home Tarot. There's another deck out there that is like, I want to say it's the Three of Wands. It might be the Wild Unknown. There's a deck out there that like, this is like a big part of like the threes. And I see this card and I always think of the threes. And like, it was the Three of Wands, the Three of Pentacles. I'm 99% sure if it was one of those. If it was one of those, I don't remember the deck. But if somebody does know which deck I'm referring to, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. But specifically, I did get this deck because this card, and I wanted to pair it with my Way Home Tarot. I do still do that, but it's a very versatile deck. So anyway, so solar plexus. So anyway, we're gonna just keep trucking right along here. In order to fly, the bee must be able to regulate its body temperature. This analogy lends itself well to humans, where flight represents life and regulation of body temperature, signifies the area of life in which you are trying to find balance. I also want to add in, and I don't know if she knew this when she wrote this book, that's debatable, if that knowledge was actually out, but technically honeybees and bees in general should not actually be able to fly. Something to do with their body mass and the size of their wings, it should be like completely impossible, but it works. And I think that's just another level of knowledge that you can use with this deck and with the specific card specifically. Okay, sorry guys, was doing a little bit of reworking the way this is all laid out. So apologies. The rest of this video is going to be a little bit more like zoomed in. I didn't think about checking that before. Also, apparently there is, I don't know what's going on outside. Like, I think it's a plane, but that's okay. So we have belong next, and it is a base chakra. Does not surprise me. Okay, what in the world is going on outside? Okay, I'm gonna close my window apparently, so hold that thought. I was trying to enjoy some nice fresh air, but apparently there's a plane or something outside. So we have belong. It is a base chakra. It is living in a group and eating in clusters. The sparrow chooses to remain with its kin in order to protect itself against predators. In order to thrive, humans must also be a part of a group that shares a common practice or purpose. Same difference, purpose, practice, whatever you might find. But it's definitely, I remember in this particular one, if you go through like the big chunky text that is here, the big one, it talks about the birds, you know, it talks about you as a person choosing a group that makes you better. If you are part of like the Mean Girls group in high school and you find yourself being a worse person, that is not the group for you. So it's about finding that group that makes you want to be a better person. And if that means, you know, leaving people for a short term and really finding what you want to do and finding, you know, what really makes you tick, and then adding in people that fit that, do that. But yeah, that's again where this whole like self-care, you know, maybe a little bit of shadow work comes in. It's overall, this deck I think really touches on a lot of different things that to me are extremely important and are extremely like just helpful. Like it just kind of gives somebody a direction to say, okay, this is the area of your life that you might want to look at. This is, you know, you're working towards this, but this is holding you back. Or you need more focus in this area to make the thing that you want happen, or to really, you know, to really make sure that what you're doing isn't like detrimental. Like if you're pushing a rock up a hill only for you to get halfway up and you take a break and it slides the whole way back and you have to restart, obviously there's a better way. Like that's kind of the thing that I'm aiming for, is giving people that help basically. So not sure if any of this is making any sense, but we're just going to keep going. So boundaries. Boundaries is also solar plexus, as you can tell by the beautiful yellow color and this really pretty mix of purple, which I love this. I love this card. The hummingbird is gorgeous. So among the smallest of all bird species, the hummingbird does not hesitate to protect its territory when necessary, reminding you of the importance of exercising your own personal boundaries. And that's what this card says. Oh, I hope I mentioned that this card with the bird here is belong, and this one is boundaries. So again, you could take that many different ways and apply that to your own life and apply it to, you know, what might be going on in the spread of maybe what cards you have laid down. Do you have the Tower? Do you have the Seven of Swords? Do you have the Nine of Swords? Do you have a Wands card? Do you have a Pentacles? Like there's a lot of ways for this to be placed in a spread, and that's why I really love using this deck in particular to give me a better understanding of the cards that I've laid down. Before I move on, actually, I did actually get this card again on Sunday in a reading, and I remember it was something to do, I'm going to be really honest, when I read very like not like evil, you know, evil aggressive people, but like people that are dominant. Like they get what they do what they need to do. They get what they need to do done. Like they are very diligent people. Like they, whether it's the mom that runs the household or the dad, or, you know, whoever kind of is the breadwinner, or the one that just like is the take charge. Like this could be somebody that's married or somebody that's single and is just like really setting themselves up, I usually end up with either a king, the emperor, queen, or the empress. Like that is a given. And I ended up with, I want to say it was a queen, and I got the boundaries card. And that, again, even just getting a queen, I believe it was the Queen of Swords. It was something to do with, yeah, there was an issue with a really nasty guy in her life. Like she had just gotten rid of him. Like she just like, I'm cutting you out. You've been kind of a toxic element to my life. And she got the boundaries card. And it was kind of like, okay, she has asserted that with that queen. She has asserted that, and she has started to prove and proof her boundaries. Like that is a solid representation. And that's one of the reasons I really like this card. Had I just drawn the queen and I saw her holding those scales and holding that sword, am I gonna pull that same kind of vibe as I would have had I also gotten the boundaries card? Maybe eventually, but by pulling this particular card and that queen, I got that immediate, like, okay, that's what happened. Somebody was stupid. You had to push. You had to be like, okay, either you back off or I'm going to make you back off. Like there's not an option here other than you are over my boundaries. Like that was it. And she's like, yes, exactly. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the thing of, yes, this can be used as like a self thing of like, okay, am I pushing somebody else's boundaries? Am I not giving somebody else enough boundary? Now this could be like, okay, my kids don't have enough boundaries, or I'm giving somebody too much run, like they're asking me too much, or I'm offering too much, or something like that. But again, there is so much extension that you can use with just that word, and what little bit of knowledge that raison d'etre really gives in a reading. And then adding that into tarot, like for me, that in itself is limitless. But enough rambling. I apologize. But I wanted to give you guys a solid idea of having owned this deck for well over a year now. I cannot believe it has been that long, but it has been at least a year that I've owned this deck. And I'm just kind of going back over it and kind of like, okay, this is what happens after having used a deck for a little bit of time. Like this is what, for me, this is the expectation that I have for my decks, and how I use them now that I have it and I've kind of fit it into that niche. That makes sense. So the next card is Clarity, and it is a beautiful, beautiful moon card. So this is the third eye. So kind of think, every time I see this card, I kind of think of the High Priestess, which is probably pretty typical given that it's a moon. It's a half moon, or it's a quarter moon. That makes, that kind of makes some sense. Plus it's also the third eye and the chakra, as you can see with this like really deep purple here, and then like other colors in the shades of purple. So the moon casts its light upon some objects while leaving others in shadow. As it does not illuminate everything, it reminds you that not all things will be apparent to you at all times. So again, you could really step deeply into that and say, okay, relationship, like new relationship especially, not all things are going to be obvious from the get-go. Like you're not going to know each other's life history on the first date, but you're also going to realize that being cautious from the first date is important, or going into a new job, like you gotta be aware that it's not gonna be all sunshine and roses, and that if there's an obvious red flag with a new guy, with a new job, with a new house, like we just recently had a friend that got scammed out of $400. $400 for this beautiful 3-bedroom house because he needed he needed to be able to like get her background check and a couple other things. And, you know, for all of that, sure. But, and I think everybody's economy is pretty different. Like, depending on where you are in the country, like, it's going to be different. But still, like, $400. She got scammed out of like $400. He was supposedly renting out this house, and it was bad. It was really bad. And I feel so bad for her because her living situation isn't great. That's the whole reason she's looking. And this house, it's a rent, but it was amazing, and it was almost too good to be true. And I feel so bad that she was scammed out of so much money, because that is just completely unfair. But a situation like that's kind of where I think of with the clarity card specifically, of like, you don't know the whole story. You know, you don't know. Same thing with buying a car right now. It's pretty bad. There's a lot of people, a lot of scams, phone scams, all that. But it's the same thing with like new relationships, Tinder, and, you know, trying to in person date. It's a hot mess in my opinion. But anyway, yeah. So clarity is another one that can just be like laid anywhere in your life, I think. So we have next is communicate. So the elephant is also a third, yes. So also a third eye. You would think that would be more of a throat chakra, but not in this case. So communicate. The majestic elephant can communicate with its peers through a number of methods, including infrasound, and seismic exchange. This card may serve as a reminder that speech is not the only method of communication available to you. And that's where, you know, most people would be like, oh, it's obviously a throat chakra. No, not always. Because talking, not everybody is able to communicate like that. Some people have to communicate through letters or through sign language, or, you know, the couples that have been married for like 30 years, and like you're those teenage kids, and you're just watching your parents just like look at each other, and they just have like this full-blown conversation. Like nothing else is exchanged except like a couple of eyebrow wiggles and like eye contact. Like that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And that's kind of where this comes in. It's like you know each other that well. Like it's almost mentally, like it's almost just mental. It's strictly mental communication. So that's why I think this is a very important third eye versus throat chakra. So yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and just move on to the next card, which is confidence. So it is also a solar plexus chakra, obviously by that beautiful, beautiful yellow coloring to the petals. So the sunflower, or helianthus. I am hoping, I'm probably butchering that, but I am hoping that is remotely how you pronounce this word. Constantly readjust its position in order to face the sun, serving as a reminder that you should always be confident in who you are and to allow yourself to shine brightly. So again, very self-care feeling, but also kind of just like, hey, the sun may be over this direction and you're kind of over here playing in the mud. That's okay, because if you move just slightly to the left, there's the sunshine. Like it means, you know, I kind of get this feeling of being flexible and being confident enough to be flexible and be okay with like not always being in the sunshine, but when it's there, be confident enough to embrace it, if that makes sense. I'm hoping. But yeah, that's, yes. All right. So moving on to the next card, which is connected. This is one of the cards that is not part of the basic 7. It is the Earth Star. So that is actually the under the base chakra. It falls below base chakra. Something to do with like inner ground, which, given that it's a connected and it's what I believe is a willow tree, or no, of a tree. Okay, so it doesn't specify what kind of tree. It just says a tree. So, but yes, so instead of like base is your feet, Earth Star falls below the ground. It feels kind of similar to Starseed. But anyway, so this is a tree. This is connected, is our word, and it is the Earth Star chakra. So, while the branches of a tree stretch upwards, its roots continue to grow deep, symbolizing your connections to self and others. The deeper you lay the foundations, the greater the likelihood that the connections you have made will flourish. So, yeah, that kind of, again, the below the base chakra. It's very important to have your roots growing deep. The connection you have made will flourish. So it's kind of, again, it's if you have like a childhood friend that you suddenly broke off with, you know, that in itself is going to be kind of a deep wound. Okay, making a second attempt at the connected card in this deck. So I'm gonna pause here real quick. Because the reason that I had to pause this was because somebody in my house came home, and my mom had to she was coming home from a meeting, and there was a very young yearling deer that got hit by a car, and it was laying in the middle of the road, and it was still alive. And she sat with it until the cops came and were able to put it out of its misery. It had been laying there for quite a while, apparently. And I will look at this card very, very differently from now on. But yeah, she was extremely broken up about it, and I'm not doing too great about it either. But we are going to push on, and I'm going to probably have nightmares because I have a dog, and that very well could have been my baby on that road instead of that mama deer's baby. So yeah. And like she said, you know, it's still a living creature. You make sure that it isn't suffering, because as human beings, that is our job. That I think everybody can understand that we were put on this earth to protect the wildlife and not see it suffering and ignore it like everybody else did tonight, outside of my own mother. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and move on. I apologize for the very heavy atmosphere that probably just brought down, but the last like 15 minutes have been very heavy for me. But we're gonna keep going. And you know, I mentioned about this being a very much about self-care and self-reflection and all of that. And I think that is a very good indicator that this deck can do a lot more than just be a surface level cheap oracle deck. Decision. Yeah, I have quite a few thoughts on that card as well right now. But instead, we're going to turn to the guidebook. And this is also a solar plexus chakra card. So, when uncertain of the path you should take, your instincts will guide you in the right direction, reminding you that your inner compass will always lead you to your true north. So, again, decision. It always kind of reminds me of the twos. The Two of Cups, Two of Swords, Two of Wands, or Two of Pentacles. I tell everybody everybody, anytime I get a 2, it's not making a choice is making a choice. So do what you have to do to make the right decision for you, whether that means aiming for your true north or just getting close enough. You know? Okay, so we are going to move on again to desire. So this is I love this moth because this is one of my favorite cards probably in the entire deck. I really love the detail of this moth. So this is the sacral chakra. So the moth finds itself mesmerized by the light and is drawn towards it, representing the focus necessary to cultivate your deepest desires. And I remember reading in the long explanation is, right here. Like a moth drawn to the flame, you find yourself mesmerized by something which takes up much of your focus, leaving you unable or unwilling to be swayed in another direction. So yeah, there's a lot of tidbits, not just here in the raison d'etre, but in the whole of her reasoning for choosing this particular design, I guess, and this particular keyword. All right, so we move on again to determination. I don't think that when we think specifically of the word determination, we think of a fox. Coy, cunning, sly. Sure, we think of a fox. But at the same time, I think that the fox is very fitting to this particular word. So it is another base chakra. The fox has long been fabled for its ability to breach the henhouse despite the obstacles placed in its path. It is utter determination that drives the fox to achieve its target, and it is this same drive that asks you one simple question: how badly do you want it? And that, I think, is one of the main reasons that this was such a good choice. That this particular picture, it's not a Dora the Explorer fox or the same fox from Aesop's Fables or anything like that. It's a very, it looks very feminine, I have to say. This fox does very much, especially in the eyes and the face, it does kind of look very feminine. I don't know if that was purposely done, but at least for me, every time I look at this fox, it looks like a girl fox. And that could say something about myself, or if it was intentional, maybe something to the creator, or something else. Like I said, it's my reflection of how I look at this particular card. It looks kind of like a girl fox, but it also isn't the sly, cunning, coy fox that you would see in those fables. It just looks like a fox. It doesn't look like it's looking for an easy meal. It just looks ready for what's coming at it. And I think the way that she drew this really sets another part of, a moth. You could have done any moth. You could have done a moth in any way, and you chose this way. It's the same thing for the fox. Is this fox was drawn in this way for a reason, to better illustrate determination instead of sly or cunning or cheating or whatever other word you might have in your head about that particular animal. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to divinity. This one I get, and I kind of get thrown a little because it's not an animal, it's not a plant, it's angel wings and a halo. So this is the crown chakra, and divinity. Angels represent the inherent divinity of all beings. The wings serve as your reminder that even during your greatest times of vulnerability, the divine always resides within. You are perfectly imperfect. So she could have done, in my opinion, she could have done this particular card in any way that she wanted. This could have been very angelic. This could have been very like, do good deeds, do good work, and you'll be rewarded. No, she went very inner self, I think, especially with this card. This feels very, again, inner self. It talks about greatest times of vulnerability and being perfectly imperfect. And I think that's why throwing cards like this in, or the ones that you'll see later that aren't included in the main section here, are so fitting for this deck, because they touch on other avenues that need more than just an animal or a plant to really touch on. Because I mean, you could make an animal with this keyword, but could you pick one? I don't think so. But the being, there's no actual being. It's just wings and a halo. That's really all you need to think of an angel, to think of this perfect being. And I think whether you're religious or not, I think that religious or not, you still have that thought that there is something out there that defines perfection, that defines being perfect. And I don't think you need a specific, like, tangible thing to put that thought out there. So using this and adding in this note of like, hey, perfectly imperfect is just as good. Like, when you feel again that great vulnerability and you're like, I am so far from perfect, and just having that moment of being like, that's okay, because everybody hits that point of being so far into yourself that you will never reach even a level of, perfection that this person that you're idolizing has, But anyway, okay, I'm going to leave. We're just going to go ahead and move on. Sorry, I know some of these cards can be kind of heavy. I know, and that's probably me kind of just adding on. But like I said, I've worked with this deck long enough that I kind of have these have these thoughts about these cards. So we're going to go ahead and move on next to emotion, which is another sacral chakra, as you can see by this beautiful orange color in the posies. So the hydrangea. I don't know if hydrangeas are orange to begin with, or if they range in all colors, kind of like roses. I just know that this particular hydrangea is orange for the sacral chakra. The hydrangea blooms in a variety of colors. Well, had I finished half a sentence, I would have known. So apparently they blossom in lots of colors. The hue of each plant being determined by the alkalinity or acidity of the soil in which it is planted. See, everybody's learning something new today. And I own this deck and I still forget things like that. Adjustments to the environment in which you plant yourself will enable you to adapt your emotions accordingly. So there's a lot I could unpack with that. But I don't feel like it's necessary, because everybody's baggage that they would be unpacking is going to be very, very different. So again, it can feel very shadow work like, but it also can just kind of feel like hey, take what you will from me and apply it, kind of something like that. Okay, so next we have empathy. So Empathy is another heart chakra. So we have a little bit of green, and just in the shell, you get like this tiny hint of like this pinkish brown color. So, empathy. Spending the time outside its shell, the turtle becomes attuned to the earth that surrounds it. Like the turtle, you must venture beyond your shell and tune into the experiences of others. So, basically, having empathy. Basically, I think, venturing beyond maybe our comfort zone or the walls of our house specifically, or something like that, or just maybe even just the walls of our mind. Again, lots of shadow work, lots of other unpacking that we can do, and a lot of these if there's something in these statements that resonate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next card, which is expectation. And we do have both a lioness and a lion in this deck, just so everybody's quite aware that we didn't miss out on one or the other. Like, there is both a yin and a yang in this deck, which I love. So again, sacral chakra. It is the responsibility of the lioness to source and provide food for her pride. The lioness serves to remind you not to fall victim to the expectation of others, and in the process of looking after your pride, ensure that your own expectations are also being met. To me, this also feels like, don't overextend your expectations. Don't expect to be married and working at NASA and having 4 kids by the age of 30. Okay? Like, realistic. And if you don't meet those, that's okay. Like, realistic is realistic. It's not doing all the things in like a 12-hour period that most people, it's going to take 3 weeks. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to forgive. I had this for at least one person over the weekend, and it was more of a reminder and less of a demand. It was just a reminder. I did get this card over the weekend, and I remember I told this person that you don't have to forgive this person that did this thing right now. You just have to tell yourself that eventually you will get to the point that you will actually forgive them. Doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. It does not mean you have to talk to them. It means nothing. You don't even have to forgive them right now. You are just letting your brain know that, hey, eventually I do have to forgive this person. It's not an expectation that you do it right this minute, right this week, this month, this year. It's just a nod to yourself that eventually that you expect yourself to be able to let go and forgive them, if only so you don't end up buried in these emotions. Hi. Okay. So, very obviously, our heart chakra. Not surprising. So, your heart finds it difficult to flourish in the face of anger. When you let go of anger and resentment, you allow your heart to blossom. And I love the fact that she used all kinds of beautiful flowers, and the fact that the flowers are all different colors. And you have not only pinks and a little bit of reds and some yellows and some oranges, like you have all the colors. But I kind of feel like it's a little bit missing that we don't have any like just slight purple. Like, I suppose in here with this particular flower, if you look really, 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 really close, like there is a little bit of possible red or possible purple in there, maybe. But yeah, I think I do appreciate the fact that she used more color, like very much like varieties of really bright colors to really make these flowers pop. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and leave that there, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the next card, which is Grounded. So this is obviously a base chakra. Grounded, this is very much a dragon. So if left unchecked, the dragon's greed becomes self-destructive. Aim towards your own goals with the ferocity of the dragon, but remember to keep your feet planted firmly on the ground as you stride towards your desires. And I did get this for a couple people over the weekend, and it was, I told the lovely lady that I read for that got this card, I said, it was her expectations were just her expectations were good. It was just she couldn't finish them reasonably. Like it was something that she needed to kind of rein back in. Like expectations great and wants are great, but she was just too much. There was so much going on. It was almost chaos. But yeah, it's, again, it's that so specifically, it's the dragon's greed. So again, our wants, we have all these wants and all these things that we want to do that we can't finish in a reasonable amount of time. That then becomes very self-destructive. So maybe putting a little bit of like thought to like grounding and being, keeping your feet firmly planted on the ground as you stride towards your desires is kind of an important thing. So next beyond that is healing. So another heart chakra, pink and green. Okay. The thorns of a rose have the potential to inflict harm, but with a little patience and careful handling, it will bloom and any pain will fade like a distant memory. You must be careful not to let your own thorns prevent the beautiful potential of healing. So yeah, it's forgive. It's kind of like, hey, I don't have to do it today. I don't have to do it tomorrow. It's just that mental note of like, hey, I will do this thing. It's just going to take a little bit of time and the ability to be able to release that anger. And then again, healing from that. Yeah. So again, not a bad one for shadow work, self-care, all of that. So next we have insight. The third eye, I love the fact that it's this beautiful peacock feather with this really pretty eye. That's like the third eye chakra, and I love that. I'm so here for it. So the eye of the peacock's feather is symbolic of your third eye. Both your third eye and your mind must remain open if you wish to receive clear and concise insight. So insight, yes. So you can't see the whole array unless the peacock's feathers are spread open, which I just, yeah, the way that she did some of these is like really, in my opinion, thought-provoking, and using all those kind of like little tidbits can really make a reading or just kind of give you more to like think on and explore and all of that. Okay, so next we have journey. So it is the crown chakra. So the Ouroboros depicts a serpent devouring its tail, representing the infinite passage of time and the cyclical nature of life. Each new chapter reminds you that no journey has ever truly ended, but is simply the turning of another page. So yeah, journey, I do kind of always think of like the Wheel of Fortune and stuff with this card, or even the Tower in certain readings. This can feel like that for me. So next is joy, the solar plexus. The sun shines in the sky every day. Sometimes it may be more difficult for you to see, but it is always present. Remember to experience joy, whether the sun shines down upon you or the clouds cover its warm rays. I remember reading about this card and about, remember to experience joy, whether the sun shines down upon you or if the clouds cover its warm rays. So it doesn't mean that you can only have joy on the days where it's sunny and bright and everything's great. It's also about finding joy in those really crappy days. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next we have the polar bear and kindness. So this is another throat chakra. The polar bear spends much of its life at sea, diving for food, and often sees the underside of the iceberg. Remember in your dealings with others that you often are not privy to what lies beneath the surface, so always act with kindness. So, the throat chakra. The polar bear spends much of its life at sea, diving for food, and often sees the underside of the iceberg. Remember in your dealings with others that you often are not privy to what lies beneath the surface, so always act with kindness. I think so. Yeah, and then I saw this card, and of course, the first thing that I thought of was Lisa Pepez and her absolute love of unicorns. And reading about this card just made me love it all the more, and kind of gave me a little bit of insight into maybe why she chose unicorns of all things to love. So this is, again, it's the crown chakra because of all this beautiful, beautiful violet. Yes, violet, because this is the lighter purple. So the violet. The majestic unicorn represents an ability to conjure limitless realities. Remind yourself to move beyond your self-imposed restrictions and achieve what you once believed to be an illusion. And I love that card for just the simplicity of what it is. So next is listen. So it's the throat chakra. When you hold a seashell to your ear, it is easy to hear the whispers of the ocean. Every wave that as it hits the shore and gently recedes. As you listen to the stories of others, make sure that you pay attention to the small details and not letting yourself be distracted by your own thoughts and feelings. So I feel like it's very much this. I felt like that was kind of fitting. Like, listen, like you hold this shell up to your ear and you're hearing it, but it's not overwhelming. That's the thing. And I think when you listen, when you actually listen, it means that you are not being overwhelming. You are not talking over somebody. You are not forcing your thoughts, your experiences, your opinions on the other person. You're just sitting back and you're listening, and then you're kind of like, hey, what do you think? Or you kind of are giving this, maybe you're giving anecdotes or thoughts about like, hey, yeah, something similar happened to me, and I can empathize with you. So I just had my mom come in again. She needed help with something, and she's like, help, I need help. So she's watching some videos, and she's got this playlist, and it kept like jumping from like this season and this particular episode and this next season and in a totally different episode, like, and I'm like, and I listen, and she's like, can you fix this? And I'm like, yes. And I fixed it, and I handed it back to her, and I told her what happened and why this thing was doing it. And it's kind of like that. It's maybe like somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, you know that guy you told me was really bad? Well, he is really bad because he hit me or he said something really mean. And instead of saying, I told you so, you're like, okay, yeah, he is a jerk. Let me, I'm here, talk to me. You're gonna let them vent, and you're gonna do all those things, and then you're gonna tell them what you're gonna do. Whether you have to go to the police station, or you have to go to friends, or you need like help getting your stuff back because he locked you out of the house, or you need whatever. Like, if you just need a shoulder to cry on, that's really what this is you listen. You don't talk over. You don't tell them what they should do. You listen. Okay, so the next one, motivate. Motivate is our throat chakra. So Stars are made up of gases that burn out over time, with some shining more brightly than others. Remember that your motivation may too burn out, but consistency will ensure that your star remains bright. So it's kind of like the wands suit, I think, is that you take things as a general as a slow progression. You don't just like rush through everything and then you hit the end of the project and you're so burnt out that you can't do anything for weeks. I did that last month. I did readings all weekend at Hazen, and then I tried to jump right back into Etsy readings. Horrible, horrible idea. I was so burnt out after just so much energy giving on Saturday and Sunday of last month that I just was completely, I should have just taken that extra week. So I know for this month that I'm taking a week between last Sunday and all those readings, and this weekend I'll be taking an extra week there. Okay. And I have to add that with all the interruptions going on while I'm trying to record this video, I am persevering, I feel like, pretty freaking well. So I'm doing chunks as I can, and then I will splice this all together later and get this all up. So I don't know if I mentioned, but that is the throat chakra. Okay, so next card is Now. So again, we come back to the peacock. So she had this particular peacock. He, not she, obviously, because males have the bright, bright feathers, have lots of eyes, and I love it. So this is the crown chakra, and this is the peacock proudly displays its crown of feathers, knowing that no moment is more sacred than now. Do not wait until tomorrow to make the most of what you have today. So yeah, and I don't know if this is something that everybody knows. It's something that I just found out semi-recently, but apparently peacocks, outside of showing off their beautiful feathers for mating season, also will spread out their feathers and shake them to scare off predators. Unfortunately for the peacocks, we think they're beautiful, which just makes them very confused and, show off all the more because they're trying to scare us away. And I feel kind of bad that we find them so pretty because they're obviously, I assume, terrified, because that's why they're showing off and like trying to get us away from them, is because they think we're predators, and I can only imagine how scared they are that they think we're gonna eat them or something. But yeah, so there's that. So next card is Receptivity. So this is another sacral chakra. The praying mantis is often seen as a symbol of stillness that calms the mind. When the mantis appears, it is asking you to make a conscious effort to quiet your inner voice in order to become more open to things that surround you. So again, the praying mantis really the praying mantis isn't a walking stick, but that's what I think of every time I kind of think of this card, Receptivity. I kind of think of like the walking stick, about how it like blends in. It's just like pretending that's not there. I kind of every time I read this, or I think about Receptivity and the small little bits here, I always kind of think about that. So it's kind of like it stays still and it blends in and it just kind of listens. I think it also kind of comes back to the star, or I'm sorry, not the star, the listen card with the shell, about, just being open to things, not being forceful and being the one that's telling, that's just accepting what you're being offered, whether that is from somebody else or apparently from the universe. Okay, so there's our other half. There we go. There's our other half. So our lion to our lioness from earlier. So obviously a base chakra. So strength. The strength of the lion has given him a reputation as ruler of the animal kingdom. Allow the example of the lion to provide you with the inspiration to dig deep and defeat any obstacle blocking your path. So, obviously, this kind of reminds me of the strength card. I have never had the strength card and the strength card from this deck to show up in the same reading at the same time. That would be pretty darn interesting, I think. But it also kind of reminds me, and as far as I know, this is still true. But the lion has the loudest or strongest or something roar in the entire animal kingdom. As far as I know, that is still true. And another reason that I really enjoy them as an animal is they really show off how powerful they are. And that's kind of what I think of every time I think of this card, is that, you don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be the strongest by being physically strong, but just by having the strength to use your voice or use your brain or whatever other strength is the one that helps you the best. That can be whatever it's going to be. Okay, moving on to the next card. So Transcend. So this is the soul star. So this is the chakra that is above the crown. So this is that golden color. It's really, very pretty. And I always think of kind of like starseed when I think of this particular chakra. Like I said, I haven't done enough research to know for sure. So please correct me if you know for sure. So the dream catcher has been traditionally used as a talisman to trap bad dreams as people slept. It is time to ensnare your limiting thoughts and beliefs and allow yourself to transcend your current vantage point. So this particular card kind of reminds me of maybe the Hanged Man or the Death card. And I believe I've actually had this particular card and the Death card in a reading before. I think it's happened a couple times. But yeah, to me, that in itself can be very important and kind of something that's signifying like, hey, this is something you actively need to work on, or something that you've been ignoring for some time. I think also if you got like the Tower card or even like a page or something with this particular card, that would be a different sort of importance, but important nonetheless. So yeah. So we also have Transformation. So I think I did get this with, I might have got, no, it was definitely the Transformation card with the Death card instead of Transcend. It was not Transcend, it was Transformation. That's what it was. So the Crown chakra with this one. So in preparation for its transformation, the caterpillar cocoons itself, trusting that this is a part of the journey. Before you enter your cocoon, remind yourself that although you cannot see your destination, you need to have faith that this is a necessary step for your growth. So I remember watching something, I don't know if it was about butterfly specifically, but it was somebody had made this comment, and I love the thought people put into a lot of these comments that are just like, hey, this is a random like tidbit, and then it really just kind of makes you sit back and think. And somebody had said about caterpillars making a cocoon for themselves, and it's like, do they know that they're going to transform to butterflies, or are they just like putting themselves in this cocoon so they can die? Like, are they just weaving their own coffins? And I kind of thought about that, and I'm like, and then I have this card here, and I'm like, do we kind of do the same thing maybe to a degree? Like, do we just put ourselves into these boxes, whether it's a physical box or a mental box, and say, okay, this is my limit. This is where I'm going to, this is kind of where my end is. Like, I'm going to reach this point and then I'm going to die. Like, do we like do that? And then maybe that's also where we come up with this think outside the box. I wonder if that has something to do with that. But yeah, just a couple little tidbits of curiosity that float around my brain when I think about this card. So we have next is Unconditional. So it is another heart chakra, and it is a beautiful swan. So swans generally mate for life, serving as a reminder that love is unconditional. Remember to love yourself fully despite any imperfections. So yes. Now, I feel like a lot of these can kind of overlap, but I think they are still different enough and original enough that yes, there's similar aspects, but I think each one, yes, overlapping. It's kind of like a Venn diagram. Like you have two circles and there's like this section in the middle that overlaps. And I think for the most part, they have their own connotations, but having that little bit of overlap means that they can kind of bridge together to make a bigger map, basically. So yeah. So next we have Understanding, and we have a couple more here, and then I have to finish the other cards, and then we're all done. So we have the throat chakra with Understanding. So the blue bell is a sweet little flower that reminds you of the importance of appreciating the small things in life in order to value the big things. So yeah, it's kind of like, I kind of think of the fact that I was just able to get a new car. Like, it's not like new this year, but it's ridiculously, yes, it was a little bit more expensive than I was planning on paying for a car. But the fact that it will last me at least another 15 years makes it 100% worth it. And I'd rather sink that little bit of extra money into it now than have a crappy car, which I just had to get rid of, that I sunk a lot more money into, probably the same amount. It probably ended up being the same amount that I just paid for this one, and I will have to sink a lot less into this new car than I did for the crappy car. It's just kind of those things of like, yeah, this is so much cheaper, like these shoes are so much cheaper, but I have to buy that many more to get when I could have bought the more expensive one and not had to do that. So I kind of think like appreciating the small things is put out the little bit more money for something that's got some quality versus taking the lesser expensive option and have to and in the end still shell out more. So if that makes sense, at least that's kind of, it's a different way I think of seeing Understanding, but I think it also applies to some instances. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and move on. So next is Vibration. So this is one of those cards that's actually kind of an odd looking one. And then I have a bunch of these guys that we'll get to the end. So this is, I do love this card though. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I love the detail and the way she did this one. So this is also a third eye. So watch your energy, align yourself with what you want to attract, and protect yourself from malicious energies. I feel like vibration is a very simplistic word for such an important sort of thing, but it also is just like, in my opinion, like the best word. Like your vibration, how you approach the world and how you let other people approach you and the world approaches you, stuff like that. It's very much about, watch your energy. That's really what this is saying, is be careful with your energy. And if anybody, I'm assuming this is, I don't want to call this the evil eye, but I feel like this has a specific, not history, maybe history. Like I feel like this is pulled from somewhere specific. I don't want to say it's Hinduism or something. That's what it reminds me of, is like the beautiful etchings you can do with the henna and stuff on the back of your hands and your wrists and everything. That's really what I see when I see this card. That's what I always think of every time I see this card. But next is Wisdom, which is again third eye. So the owl is a way shower of wisdom. As a nocturnal creature, he is never observing of what lies in shadows, or he is ever observing of what lies in shadows. Your wisdom comes not only from knowing yourself, but in how your understanding of self enriches the landscape around you. So yeah, I think that's I think everybody in every deck uses an owl. And I really like the way that Melissa really kind of gave us like the explanation of why she chose the owl. I really do like this one. It's definitely one of my favorites as far as like explanations for why is the owl in your deck. And then we have the final card, which is Worthy and the Ladybug. I think this is probably another one of my favorite cards in this deck, but I honestly don't dislike any cards in this deck, which makes me want to use it all the more. That makes it, for me, a very, very important deck that I don't just like absolutely despise, like the compass or the peacock or something. Like, I don't dislike any of these cards because they all serve a very valid purpose. And that's, I think, what makes this deck invaluable for me. But we're going to go ahead and read this. But as far as being worthy, I think that's kind of what I thought of, is that this deck is worthy for me. So, the base chakra. Though the lifespan of the ladybug is relatively short, she makes the most of her life by allowing her beauty to shine for all to see, never doubting her worthiness. So yeah, definitely definitely a deck that's important. So I think that really signifies its worthiness, at least for me. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get onto the rest of the cards that don't fall into alphabetical order with the rest of them. So the first one is Microcosm. So this one has these all have very long kind of explanations. So we're going to start with Microcosm. This is obviously the base chakra. The last 7 are specifically just the chakra cards. Instead of trying to read all of this text, I'm just going to go with the My Light. So the keywords for each of these, because trying to read all of this is just, I'm zoning out and it's not working. So we're going to retry this. So this particular card is miniature, encapsulate, embody, and small scale. So it's very much this, critics will say that no one will notice a drop of water in the ocean, but if your actions inspire another, which in turn inspires another, the ocean will eventually create a tidal wave, bringing with it great power and an altered landscape. Never underestimate the effect of the small upon the great. So that's where this card in particular comes in. So next is the Passion card with the sacral chakra and the keywords desire, sacrifice, emotion, and heartfelt. So this seems important. Whatever your aspirations, be sure that the level of sacrifice is commensurate. Whatever your aspirations, be sure that the level of sacrifice is commensurate to the outcome. You do not want to have given up a great deal for little gain. Conversely, you do not want to look back and regret not trying something for the sake of not being willing to concede in some areas. This choice ultimately lies with you. In chasing your passion, you must take a calculated and measured approach. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good, and again, you really, for these ones, it feels like using the guidebook is especially helpful. So next is Manifest. So the specific keywords for this are intention, allow, feel, and welcome. If you continue to think of your desire as something that will happen in the future, you will struggle to manifest as your thoughts reside beyond the present. To truly be successful in manifestation, you must let go and have confidence that the universe will provide. The result may not always be in the way you envision, but it will always be as you require. Let go and allow. I love that sentence every time I get this card. And I got this card for somebody the other day, and I said, if you don't at least put the thought out there that you want this thing, it will never come, because it's not something you actually let yourself have. And it, like it's in the book, it's not going to come. It's probably not going to come in the same way that you expect, but the intention is still there. And if you don't put intent out, there's no way you're going to get it. So next is love. Love is obviously our heart chakra. And the key words are acceptance, embrace, beauty, and unconditional. Love yourself enough to stop constantly comparing yourself to others and to find an end to the negative self-talk that spreads through your veins like poison. Realize that your beauty, both inside and out, is absolute, and that no one has ever been, nor ever will be, the unique being that is you. The greater you allow self-love, the greater your capacity to love those around you. One of the reasons that I absolutely adore this deck is, again, the self-care and the shadow work that really comes with these cards. So the next is truth, and it is our throat chakra. I feel like speaking truth is very like what this card is all about. So my light, honesty, peace, candor, and release. Though it may be difficult to face at first, it also functions as a key, unlocking the door to many freedoms. Ask yourself whether holding back is worth the angst of not speaking up. Choose to communicate your truth in a loving and respectful way. Most often, you will experience a cathartic release. When you let go of thoughts or feelings that are keeping you anchored in one place, you set your sights on things that really matter. Lies, deceit, and untruthfulness will bind your heart and mind, but the truth will set you free. And then we have two more. So we have intuition, which is our third eye. Yes. Let's see. When presented with different options, ask yourself what feels right. It is likely that one choice will stand out above all others. This is your inner compass guiding you towards the best decision for you at the moment, or you at this moment. Pay attention to the cues as they come. Do not doubt your intuition as it steers you to the best direction. So if you were to get like this particular card and decision in the same reading, I think that would be a really strong one. The keywords are instinct, feeling, awareness, and sense. And then finally is Macrocosm, one of my probably favorite cards in the entire deck. Perspective, depth, outlook, and proportion. This is our crown chakra. While things in your own reality may seem huge, realize that in the grand scheme of things, your worries are simply a drop in the ocean. Remember that on this journey, you are never alone. There will always be someone who has trodden this path before you. Keep an eye out for the markers along your journey, those familiar things that help you remember that despite how lonely the road may feel, many have forged the same path ahead of you. Tomorrow, the universe will waken anew, and with it, the promise of possibility for what is to come, for you and for all. So that is the last card in this deck. And I feel like it has been a very long afternoon completing this video. And it feels like I've had a lot of ups and downs with it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a quick shuffle. Nothing ridiculous. Okay. So that's the card that apparently wants to come out. I don't think anything else is going to come out. We have wisdom. Yeah, I think we've all gained, in my opinion, we've all gained quite a bit of wisdom today. I think I've gained a lot more wisdom with this deck as well. And I think going forward, I'm going to be much more knowledgeable in how I use it, being able to use it not only for myself, but for clients, and being able to really pull from my intuition instead of having to rely on the guidebook. And I hope this gave those watching this a little bit of wisdom on how this particular deck works. Maybe gives you the opinion of whether you would like to bring it into your collection or not. This is never my intention is to force you to buy anything or to make you regret not buying something. I just found that this is one of those decks that I really enjoyed, and I like thorough walkthroughs because a superficial flip through is great, but it doesn't always give you enough to know if the deck's going to work for you. I've done that enough times to know that seeing something superficially is usually a really bad regret. So I hope this really kind of solidified your opinion of this deck. And I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your week. I will see everybody back on Etsy probably next week. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. This has been an absolute roller coaster of an afternoon. Okay, bye, guys.